Have you ever seen a movie, or maybe it's a film that's streaming, and the scene shows a very young woman who's in handcuffs, and she's walking down this very dark hallway by prison guards, and she looks very afraid. And usually the next scene will depict her by herself, but she's like in a crowded environment, maybe usually like in the cafeteria, in the prison cafeteria, and she's sitting by herself. And then out of nowhere, you hear somebody slam their tray down and sits next to her, just plumps down beside her. And the young lady is petrified, and she looks up, and then they show this very dominant butch type woman that sits very close to her. And the really dominant, tough butch woman asks, the new prisoner lady her name. And she hesitantly responds with her name. And next thing you know, the very butch woman says, "You're mine's." And the next scene plays out where the new fresh-faced young woman is constantly being targeted and harassed and bullied by this very domineering butch type woman. And they show her as if she's just constantly just in this young lady's face and pretty much sexually harassing her. And that's the scene that plays out, and they'll depict this very dominant butch woman who is portrayed as the lesbian villain, who is after this young, fresh-faced young woman who is scared out of her mind because it's her first time being locked away. And as the movie plays out, next thing you know, you find out that the butch lesbian conquers this young woman who's not a lesbian, but then she suddenly turns into a lesbian because the butch dominant woman made her a lesbian. Well, this actually is portrayed in a lot of films and movies about women in the prison system. And as you can see, I titled this video, "Here's Why They Think Prison Turns Women into Lesbians." My name's Giselle Wallace. And I know that I've seen this depicted in movies quite a bit, so I know you have. And this is why a lot of people think that if a young woman goes to jail or if she goes to prison, and the difference between jail and prison is jail is like less than 12 months, but prison is, that's why they call it prison time, because it's 12 months minimum, which equals to a year, and whatever else the judge decides how many years you stay in prison. So prison is more long term as opposed to jail. So you may go to jail. Some people may go to jail maybe 3 months, maybe 90 days, maybe 6 months, but pretty much they'll go less than a year. But if they're just going to really be locked up, they're facing prison time. You're looking at a year minimum. And many times, depending on the crime, you may do 10 years, you may do 20 years, you may do 30 years plus. Some people have life sentences in prison. So people will say, oh, well, she's gone to prison now, so she don't have no access to a man. And she's going to be surrounded by these women all the time, these hungry women that's just looking for what they call fresh meat. So it's basically over for her. She's going to turn into a lesbian because she's locked away. I heard they gave her 20 plus years. Eligible for probation at 13 years. So there's no way that she is going to be able to stay in prison that long and not get with a woman. And, they'll say those things because most people are either romantically or sexually involved with someone when they're in the free world. We live in a society where people prioritize being in a relationship. And people talk about relationship goals all the time. So this world we live in, it's pretty much focused on romantic relationships, sexual relationships, and then we also live in a very hypersexualized society. So they think, well, people are going to get involved sexually with someone. So if you are not in the free world, meaning if you're not locked up, then who are you going to be with? Well, we know how the prison system works. They separate people according to their sex, male or female. So they don't mix male and female in the same prison because they have a concern about population, overpopulation. They have a concern about men overpowering women physically, whether that's like physical altercations, like where a man is putting his hands on a woman, or they're worried about essay, a woman being essayed. So they separate the sexes. They put women together in prison and they put men together in prison. And then most people identify as heterosexual. So they'll think, okay, so she's heterosexual. So when she go to this prison, that's nothing but women in there, she's just going to have to probably remain celibate. So a lot of people think that women remain celibate when they go to prison because they're like, oh, well, she's straight, so she's not into women. She's going to remain celibate. But then they'll think about a woman who is a bully and who is real butch and dominant, and they always think, oh, well, she's going to be the type of woman that's going to overpower the more feminine, docile woman, and she's going to turn her into a lesbian. And so they believe that women turn into lesbians, that they're forced to become lesbians because they are behind bars for a long period of time and they do not have access to any men. Well, the reason why they think this way is because they really don't understand the truth about women. They really don't even understand the truth about sexual orientation. You see, when you're in the free world, you don't have any type of prison instructions to follow. You're not behind bars. You don't have to follow this strict daily schedule that prisoners abide by day in and day out. because a lot of people don't realize that prisoners don't just lay up in their cell all day and then they go to sleep and go eat in the cafeteria. No, they actually have a schedule. And they have to abide by the schedule. If not, then they will be in trouble. So, but in the free world, you don't have to necessarily abide by these restrictions that are more callous when you're behind bars. Yes, in the free world, we have laws and we have rules because that keeps us from getting in trouble. That keeps us from avoiding going to jail or going to prison. So abiding by rules and laws is important to do if you want to stay a free citizen. So in the free world, you're here and you're doing whatever you want to do, pretty much. Yes, you have to go to work, but everybody got to work to eat. So we can't say that that's a punishment. No, you got to work to eat. We have bills to pay. That's reality. And then some people think, oh, well, when you go to jail or prison, you don't have any bills to pay. You're pretty much not having to work. Well, the truth is they have to work. That's actually part of their schedule. They have to work, but they don't get paid for their work. That's the difference. But when you're in the free world, people can pretty much look at you and decide who they think you are, but they really don't know you. Because see, looking at a person does not determine who that person is. You really don't know a person unless that person wants to allow you to get to know them. So a lot of women, they may not be who you think they are. And a lot of women who you think are heterosexual are actually lesbians. But because in the free world, we live in a heteronormative society, which celebrates and promotes heterosexual relationships between a man and a woman, but they ignore or overlook or reject same-sex relationships. A lot of people who are same-sex attracted do not let you know that they're same-sex attracted, because in the free world, they get punished for being themselves. But here's the other situation. The people in the free world, if they find out that you're gay or lesbian, they probably are going to harass you. They're probably going to bully you. They're going to do things to try to get you in trouble. As a matter of fact, some people dislike you so much because you're gay or lesbian that they will get you in trouble with the law. And then you end up going to jail or prison because someone who is in the free world and who identifies as heterosexual does not think that because you're a homosexual that you should be free. No, they think that you should suffer and be punished. And they'll do whatever they can to get you in trouble with the law. This happens a lot with people who are same-sex attracted and they live in the homes with their family. A lot of parents will throw their children out into the street. A lot of parents will put their hands on their children, their teenagers, or their young adult children who may be under the age of 25, and they still need a little bit of help from their family because they're going through a tough time. And they find out that, oh, you're gay, oh, you're lesbian, and they give them a difficult time and they end up suffering. They may end up doing something like maybe stealing something. Maybe they do something such as stay out too late and they don't go to school, and they get in trouble with the law for violating the rules, the laws. But the only reason why they're doing it is because they don't have the support or the love from their family members. And they keep getting in trouble with the law. And finally, that's it. You're going to get arrested. Boom. Now you've lost your freedom. So they're behind bars because their family does not accept them because they're gay, because they're lesbian. And so now the lesbian, for example, is in prison. She knows that she's got to do the time because she did the crime. Doesn't matter why or what the history is or reason behind why she did the crime. You do the crime, you do the time. And she realizes, I had all that trouble in the free world. I couldn't really be myself. I couldn't say I'm a lesbian and just be free because other people caused me problems just for being myself. But the ironic thing is I'm now in prison and I can be myself. There's women around me from all walks of life who are not these mean people that they make us out to be, because everybody has a story. And now she can let her hair down and really be herself. And then she meets another young lady in prison with her, and they get to know each other, and they become really good friends, and they fall in love with each other. And they have a beautiful relationship while they're serving their time in prison. And they're happy because they're in love and they can be themselves. They can be themselves in prison, but they couldn't be themselves in the free world. People are going to make mistakes, but their sexual orientation is not a mistake. And when people think that everybody thinks the same way, loves the same way, and that they have the same sexual orientation, that's when people are closed-minded. That's when people are not free to think for themselves, because they're more concerned about how everybody else will treat them because of their difference. So when you see that movie again, or if you see a new movie or a new film that portrays the myth of a woman who is feminine and docile and scared out of her mind, and she's in prison for the first time, and then next thing you know, there's a bully who represents a lesbian woman who is a masculine, butch, domineering woman who forces herself on this woman who is young and new to the prison system. Don't be so quick to believe what you see on the TV and what you see in the movies, because it's all a lie. It's the Matrix. And see, you can escape the Matrix if you know who you are, and if you live your life for yourself. Because see, the Matrix a lot of time is the free world that we live in. And you could choose to stay in the Matrix, or you can choose to be free, because being free is a mindset. That's all I have for you at the moment. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Giselle Wallace. Have a beautiful day.